Welcome to my scientifically informed insider look at mental health topics. If you find this video to be interesting or helpful, please like it and subscribe to my channel. Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today's question asks, what advice do I have for someone who is having problems because they are narcissistic? So the answer to this question is based on the perspective of a person who's narcissistic, not a victim of someone who is narcissistic, although the video may be helpful to people from both groups. So I never give direct advice, only general thoughts that may not apply to a specific person, because each person's situation is different. Some of my thoughts, however, may be helpful to someone who's seeing a counselor. They could take my ideas to the counselor they're seeing and see if that counselor thinks that the ideas make sense for that particular individual. So that's really my first tip here. See a counselor. Even if it's not related to mental health, even if somebody doesn't have the official mental disorder, narcissistic personality disorder, a counselor can still help. Counselors are not just for psychopathology type concerns, right? Mental disorders. They can help people with a number of goals, with relationships, career, mood, a lot of different areas. Before I get into the rest of my ideas, I want to provide a quick background on narcissism and why it's difficult to make changes in this area. Now, no one really chooses to be narcissistic. No one chooses the trait of narcissism. An individual can certainly act in a manner consistent with narcissism from time to time, like choosing to make fun of a specific person, choosing to brag about a specific accomplishment. That's not narcissism, rather that's a fairly common behavior. When that type of behavior occurs regularly and is directed toward a variety of people, it may be considered narcissistic. So narcissism is really a set of personality traits, and personality usually doesn't change very much over the lifespan. So again, everybody can make a decision to do something that looks narcissistic, but if somebody's truly narcissistic, they're not really even thinking about it, right? It's part of their personality. They're not thinking about each decision that makes them appear to be narcissistic. Now, we don't know exactly where narcissism comes from. There are certainly genetic factors at play here, and I think parental neglect plays a big role, but regardless of what causes it, the consequences of having it are fairly clear. Narcissism has such a powerful negative impact because of the lack of insight, among other factors. People who are narcissistic often don't truly understand that they are that way. They might be able to say, oh, other people call me narcissistic, but they still lack an understanding of what that truly means. They can't really see things from the perspectives of other people. They don't understand how their own narcissism affects other people either. So many of these tips, at least in some sense, are about trying to gain awareness of what you're doing, if in fact you're a narcissist. And that word doing is really instrumental here, because a large part of changing narcissism is about changing behavior. Narcissism expresses itself as certain thoughts, feelings, and behavior, but behavior is really the key to changing narcissism, in my opinion. So for example, looking at thoughts, feelings, and behaviors, if we take a look at a thought, right? A narcissistic thought might be, I'm better than everybody in this room. A narcissistic feeling might be having anger when criticized. And a narcissistic behavior might be writing a bad review for a restaurant because you thought one of the waitresses did not admire you enough. So directly changing a thought or a feeling may be possible, but it's difficult. So using that example I gave about the thinking, I could say, well, just don't think that anymore. Don't think that you're better than everyone in the room. But that really doesn't make sense, because that thought comes to a narcissist automatically. And it's really the same thing with the feeling. You should just stop feeling angry. If that worked, nobody would be angry. Nobody would have undesired feelings of any type, like sadness, disappointment, or shame. But with behavior can be prevented, I think, in a little bit of an easier way than thoughts and feelings. So now moving on to my ideas for people having trouble with narcissism. As I mentioned, the first tip, of course, would be seeing a counselor, but after that, we would see trying to gain awareness of your feelings. Common feelings to look out for would be a desire for revenge, feelings of shame, inadequacy, inferiority, anger, resentfulness, and distrust. If one of these feelings is present, especially if it's very strong, that's when somebody's more likely to act in a narcissistic way. Now, feelings are often connected to communication. In some instances, feelings are caused by communication. and feelings, of course, can lead to communication as well. Narcissism often does its worst damage through communication, meaning narcissists tend to transmit information to other people that causes damage in relationships. And this can be done both verbally and non-verbally. So with this in mind, my next idea is take time to make decisions that relate to communication. So if you're thinking about writing an email to somebody who offended you, it may be a good idea to wait on that. If you're considering criticizing somebody who just criticized you, think about that for a while. Obviously, some decisions need to be made quickly, but many don't. Waiting for a little bit provides you time to apply some of the other ideas I'm talking about in this video, and other ideas that other people may have on this subject, and to think through the consequences. In our society, there's this pressure to be witty, to respond quickly and intelligently, but if you can only choose one, responding intelligently is far better. Another significant difficulty with narcissism is pathological lying. Not necessarily lying to get something from somebody, but lying to make oneself seem more important, like bragging, exaggerating, or embellishing, claiming to have an ability or skill that one doesn't possess. When a narcissist tells these lies, they are aware that they're lying, usually. This part actually gets a little tricky, this understanding of narcissism and lying and self-deception. So a narcissist believes they are justified in being deceptive, so they deserve to lie. Because they deserve to have whatever experience they are bragging about that is a lie. So for example, if a narcissist does not win some award that they were eligible to receive, meaning in theory they could have won the award, but in reality they didn't, somebody else won the award, the narcissist may claim they did win that award, but they tell this lie because they believe they deserve to win this award in the first place. In their mind, the lie becomes justified. Actually, the lie is necessary because the truth should have never happened. It was unjust. So again, they're aware that they are technically lying, but it doesn't feel like a lie. They don't feel badly about lying. Quite the opposite. It feels good to tell the lie because it rights a wrong. The lie feels like what should have been the truth, if that makes sense. So with that in mind, a lie doesn't really feel like a lie to a narcissist in the same way as it would to a non-narcissist, which means the mechanism the narcissist uses to detect lies is a little bit different. Whenever a statement is made, or better yet, when a narcissist is contemplating making a statement, they may want to think to themselves, is this statement technically correct? Right? So it's all about, did this really happen? Not about, how do I feel about it? Not, it should have happened this way, or it should have happened that way. How did it actually happen? So separating the feeling, and really the arrogance and the sense of entitlement, from the technical truth. And really, the technical truth is the truth, right? But for the narcissist, there are two competing theories for what's true, right? There's what's technically correct, and again, their feelings. So that's why I use the term technically correct, even though, of course, it matches the truth. So if a statement that a narcissist is getting ready to make is not technically correct, they can engage in a behavioral substitution. Now, this is different than refraining from a behavior. Now, there's a very important distinction here. Refraining from a behavior, for example, simply not telling a lie, is more difficult than substituting in a new behavior. I think when somebody is getting ready to tell a lie, a good behavior to substitute in would be listening. Because if you're lying, you're talking to someone, right? So you're in a conversation. You can't really lie alone. I mean, you can lie to yourself, but I'm talking about relationships here. So if a narcissist is lying, they are talking to somebody else. So there's an opportunity here to listen. One way to remember this behavioral substitution would be that the word lie begins with the letters L-I, and the word listen does as well. So when someone detects that they're lying, they can think, maybe I should listen instead. So there is really a way to recognize the behavior that should be changing and put in a new behavior to bring in. Lying converts to listening. Another one of the real dangers of narcissism is how the narcissist makes other people feel. Often people interacting with the narcissist feel like they're misunderstood, like the narcissist interprets their behavior as threatening or antagonistic when the person was not trying to be that way at all. Some narcissists are very sensitive to criticism, specifically vulnerable narcissists. Another possibility is the person just doesn't feel heard at all, right? The person talking to the narcissist, like no one's listening, like they're being ignored. This is more common with the other type of narcissism called grandiose narcissism. So what can the narcissist do to address this issue? Well, one of the answers I hear all the time is work to see things from the other person's perspective. And yes, I agree, normally that makes sense, but that's difficult to do when narcissistic. Another idea would be actively include the other person in the conversation. I think this is also a good idea, and I think it's much easier to accomplish. It really doesn't have to be difficult at all. A narcissist could use a statement in a conversation like, "Tell me what you're feeling." Or they could say, "I'm talking too much here. What's your take on this?" Or, "Would you give me your point of view on this topic?" Another idea would be frequently checking in to make sure that you're being interpreted correctly, again, from the point of view of the narcissist. So after making a statement to somebody, maybe adding something like, "I hope that makes sense. Can you tell me what you thought of that?" Now, sometimes it just helps to preface a statement, like, "I mean this in a friendly way," right? Just kind of putting that preface there and softening the blow. So again, when a narcissist is trying to change, they're really trying to be cautious about how they deliver communication. And during that transition, when they're trying to change from being narcissistic to less narcissistic, it can help to just put those pieces in front. Like, "I hope you don't take this the wrong way," or "I don't mean anything bad by this." Just something, again, to kind of soften the delivery of the message. Now, that really won't do much good without these other mechanisms in place to actually kind of change the listening skills, right? To listen instead of lie, like I talked about before, and to check in with people regularly. So how can somebody remember this tip? Well, when you're chatting, remember to check in. So both begin with the letters CH. Another substitution is to replace responding with something about yourself with reflecting, taking something that the other person said and saying it back to them in a way that shows that you understood it. So you change it around a bit, but it communicates understanding. So the person might be talking about a struggle that they're having at work, and you're thinking to yourself, "I have a struggle at work," and there's this temptation, again, especially if somebody's narcissistic, to say that. So you're getting ready to respond with something about yourself, stop right there and reflect instead. So it sounds like you're having a really tough time with your struggle at work, right? A statement like that is reflective. It avoids the narcissist saying something about themselves and encourages the other person to talk. So the reflection is really a powerful tool to change narcissistic behavior. So the memory device for this would be, instead of responding about yourself, reflect about them. Again, responding and reflecting both begin with the letters RE. So these are just some ideas I have about narcissism. Like I said before, it's important to go to a counselor because the counselor is going to have advice that can be specific to a person, to all the different circumstances surrounding that person, their own personality, their own background. So counselors can be really helpful in this situation. So I know whenever I talk about narcissism and change, there will be a variety of opinions, people who agree with me and disagree with me, and have other thoughts from examples and experiences in their own lives. Please put those opinions and thoughts in the comment section. They always generate a really interesting dialogue. As always, I hope you found this description of narcissism and change to be interesting. Thanks for watching.